What is your kinkiest game you have run so far?
So, like, what do you mean? Do you mean a game session or the game itself? Because I've run Tales of Gore, obviously, and that's quite a kinky game, but the sessions that we played of that weren't particularly kinky. Because I was running it at a convention as like a demo, and obviously you have to be a little bit more cagey around conventions about what you include. Much as I resent that, and certainly resent being forced to play it safe, but to an extent, there's an element of responsibility there. Or do you mean session? Of course, because even a normal game can take on a somewhat kinky twist depending on what happens during the game. And obviously I am interested in sexuality and attendant issues in role-playing games because they drive so much of our real life motivation, action, ambition, everything. It's so much of what we do as living, breathing beings is about finding a mate or a partner, or fulfilling the urges that we have in one way or another. And yet this is almost entirely absent from a lot of games, past a wandering harlot table or something. So quite often games of mine take a turn for the sexual, not necessarily described blow by blow, if you'll pardon the pun, but it's something that is there. It's something that I don't ignore when it comes to games and game worlds, because I think it grounds them and makes them more plausible in a lot of ways. How would people use magic in sex like we use technology in sex now? And in games like Cyberpunk, especially after the computer game, you can see how sexuality is kind of everywhere in that game world. So and cyberware offers up some kinky possibilities. So some Cyberpunk sessions have certainly gotten a bit horny. Vampire, I mean, Bram Stoker's Vampire and Carmilla as well. It's all about that kind of sublimated desire, allegorical sex, not necessarily the nicest sex, but then one person's kink is another person's ick. So Vampire often has sexual undertones or overtones, and obviously, running tabletopless, kinky stuff happens, but weirdly not as much during the game, because I'm never entirely sure how far is okay to go in the games, even in an adult context. Because sometimes people have sensitivities and haven't listened to you when you say you can opt out or fade to black at any point, and then they get their backup. So I mean, it depends. Probably the kinkiest my games have ever gotten is in Vampire, both tabletopless and LARP. Where this group 8 who are seeking an 8th sin have gotten involved and entangled with people, and they're a kind of antagonist group that I've used across multiple games because I think it's interesting, frankly. So a long, rambling, mostly non-answer, but I hope you got something out of it.